Favor follows the committed. And today, I want to reveal to you that if you remain committed, God will release abundance of favor in your life. So stay tuned. All right, let's get it. So, I'm going to tell you a little story. A story about a beautiful young woman named Ruth. And this story is found in the Bible, in the Word of God. What we learn from this is how commitment transformed into abundance of favor. All right, so the story begins in a location far, far away. There was a man called Elimelech, and his wife's name was Naomi, and they had 2 sons. They left a city which was plagued with famine and hard economic times. It was hard for people to live. They went to another city called Moab to find a livelihood there. Now, when the 2 sons got older, they married. One of the sons married a lady whose name was Ruth, and the other was named Orpah. Now, unfortunately, in this land that they were living, things didn't just work out the way they thought it would. Naomi's husband passed away, and the 2 sons also passed away. So Naomi was found alone with her 2 daughter-in-laws, and they decided to go back to the city where they originally came from. Now, at some point, Naomi became frustrated because she said, I cannot make these young women stick with me for a long time, so I need to let them go. So she told her young women and said, I do not have sons for you. Go on a different way and start a life somewhere else where you can get married and find a man who will take care of you. For she had nothing at that moment. One of the daughters, her name was Orpah, decided to go, but the other one, whose name was Ruth, decided to stay. Something that made Ruth remain was that she made a commitment in front of God that she will remain with Naomi. She will be a part of Naomi's life, and she will take care of her mother-in-law. So Naomi was shocked at her level of commitment, and they carried on their way and went back to the city where she originally came from. Now, Ruth and Naomi were together and trying to make a living. And Naomi had a relative who was fairly a well-standing man, a wealthy man, a man of noble character. And he owned a farm somewhere. So one day, Ruth decided to go and work and make a living for her and Naomi. She went out to the fields to look for leftover grain. The field that she happened to work in was a field belonging to a man called Boaz. Now he was a relative of Naomi who was recognized for being a wealthy, noble man. Something happened as she was working in the field that the man whose name was Boaz noticed her, noticed how hard she was working, and mocked her and said, "Who is that woman?" The owner of the field noticed her and gave her an extended invitation to continue to serve, not just looking for leftover, but to gather among the sheaves behind the harvesters. The amazing thing is that the owner of the field heard about Ruth's level of commitment. He knew that this woman is a woman of commitment. She stuck next to her mother-in-law despite the famine, despite her mother-in-law asking her to go away, but she remained committed. Commitment has a reputation. Those who remain committed will always be recognized. One day, Naomi gave Ruth some instructions and said, "Listen, because you've been so committed to me, I want you to do this." And Naomi told her to dress up in her best garment and go out and lay at the feet of Boaz the man who owned the field, and lay at his feet, something will happen. And Ruth obeyed because she was committed. You see, being committed works very closely with being obedient, listening to the instructions that God gives you. So Ruth listened, and she went to the place where Boaz was having a meal, and she hid herself until Boaz needed to rest. And when Boaz went to rest, he was already tired, and she sneaked in and lay down at his feet. At about midnight, Boaz woke up and saw this beautiful young lady and recognized that it was Ruth. When Boaz recognized that Ruth was at his feet, something happened to his heart. They had a bit of a conversation, and Boaz realized that this young lady was not just after a young man or after the lifestyle as fellow people her age at that time were doing, but she was after purpose. She knew that God had positioned her to be a redeemer, and she aligned herself with one who was already a redeemer. Boaz was a man of stature. He was a rescuer, and Ruth found herself at his feet. This did something to Boaz, as what led after that is Boaz fell completely in love with her and married her. And the two became the redeemers. They became the rescuers of the people of that region, because God had blessed them with abundant wealth and also with abundance of favor. So, what do we learn from this story? We learn that being committed will open doors of favor over your life. Just like Ruth, if you decide to be committed to the instruction, the things that God has put in your heart, maybe God has told you to follow one direction, God has told you to submit yourself to somebody, or God has given you an instruction to do something, don't easily give up. Remain committed, because at the end of the tunnel, God will release His favor over your life. So, commitment is the master key that opens the favor of God in our life. There are places where God will not take you unless you are committed. Always remember that commitment to God has nothing to do with words. It has everything to do with actions. Commitment is holding on in a manner that cannot let go. Our commitment to God is always expressed with how obedient we are to His word and His instructions in our life. God will show His favor upon your life when you show your level of commitment to Him. Favor is an act of kindness beyond what is already due. Has God ever showed you an unusual kindness? I mean, maybe you were not qualified for that job, but God still gave it to you. You were sick, and God showed you favor and He healed you. Or maybe you were in a situation where you were depressed, you were hurt, but God healed you, restored you, and gave back that joy. Maybe you were sick, on your way to death, but Jesus healed you. Man, that's the favor of God. Today, I want to encourage you, just like the story of Ruth, let us not easily let go to the things that God has given us and instructed us to do. Let us remain committed, because on the other side of commitment, there is favor. All right, God bless you. Remain committed, and I'll see you at the top. All right.
Is raising up a new generation, a generation that is not ashamed of their faith, a bold and innovative new generation. A generation that knows that God is greater than religion. a generation that represents Jesus in different sectors, from business, fashion, technology, sports, and many other sectors. God is redefining this new generation, and you are a part of this. It's time for new beginnings. It's time for Draw Near Global.